Yo, I'm Ray, and today I'm going to show you how to set up Python on a Windows machine. So first, head over to the web browser and the python.org website. In this website, click on the Downloads menu. In You can download the latest version of Python, which is 3.11.2 as of 1st April 2023. And you usually want the latest version because it has all of the bug fixes that are up to date and it has all of the latest features. Now, sometimes you will want an older version, especially if you have an older project that you want to run. And for that, you can just scroll over to the looking for specific release and then click on the required version of Python. Say you want the Python 2.7.0 version, just click on it and it will open up this page. And over here, it allows you to download it in various formats. For example, the tarball, bzip tarball for Linux, and then Windows MSI installers for Windows, and you have the Mac install disk image for Mac. You can just click on one of these to install it. But since we want the latest version, just click on the latest version for Windows download at the top. And once the installation is complete, you can just double click on the file. Okay. In here, it asks you two main checkboxes. One is use admin privileges, which you can just allow, and second is adding python.exe path. Now, what path does is the path is a particular feature of the command prompt or like the operating system. And if you open up command prompt just by going to Windows and then CMD, here it'll open up the command prompt, and here you can type various functions. And if you type Notepad, which is a default path variable in Windows, it will open up Notepad. Now, in Windows, like Windows 11, if you type Python, what happens is it doesn't open up the Python app because you haven't installed it yet. But what it rather does is it redirects you to the Python page on Windows Store. Now, you may want to get this, but most of the time it doesn't perform all of the functions that the latest version from the website can perform. So it's always better to get it from the website. So where the path is you can go to system, the system settings, and then over in the device specification, you can click on advanced system settings. In here, under the advanced menu, click on environment variables. These are all the variables set for your operating system or the particular user in this case. In here, you'll see path variable. Now, the path variable has the name as path and the value as C users, the username app data local Microsoft Windows app. This is the default for path in most Windows machines, and this essentially includes all of the local Microsoft apps. That's why we could run Notepad directly. Now, what we want is to be able to run Python as well from here. So whenever you type Python in the command prompt, you want to be able to run Python code from here. So you want to add Python to the path. The times when you do not want to add Python to the path is when you have another version of Python already added to the path. And in that case, it'll just get confusing if there's multiple versions of Python. So click on Add Python to Path and install now. Now this installation includes the IDE, pip, and documentations. Essentially, what these three are is that the IDLE allows you to run Python commands. The pip allows you to import other Python code. Like for example, if there's already someone who made functions for various math commands, you can import that math command function into your Python code. And documentation gives you various information about the Python code you're using. And once you click on the default installation, it'll take a bit of time till the installation is complete. And there it is. The setup was successful, and you can just click on close. And now we can directly start using the Python IDLE or the Python from the command prompt. Now, if you just go to command prompt, and as we added Python to the path, if you now type Python, it will open up the Python version. In here, you can type various functions such as print and so on. The IDLE that I mentioned before, it stands for Integrated Development and Learning Environment. Over here, you can still use the same print function. And what's special about the IDLE shell is that it offers a little bit more functions in comparison to the command prompt version. For example, you can restart the shell multiple times. Let's just set a variable. A variable essentially has a variable name and a corresponding value in Python. So the variable underscore name, and let's put the value in double quotes. Value. Now you can print this variable with the variable name within the print quotation, the parentheses, and it will display value. Now, if you go to shell and click on restart shell, it will restart the entire shell. That means this was one particular shell. It closed that shell and restarted, that is, started a new shell. Now, if you try to print variable name, what happens is it gives a name error. Now, essentially, what a name error means is that the variable name is not specified. You see, we specified the variable with the name with the value in the previous shell, but not over here. So that's what happens when you restart the IDLE shell. IDE of Python or any programming language stands for Integrated Development Environment. The IDE we're going to use is VS Code or Visual Studio Code. And you can just click on code.visualstudio.com to reach the website. It gives the download for Windows right at the top of the website. Just click on download for Windows, and what's special about an IDE is that it gives way more functions. It allows you to run the Python code from within, allows you to like color the various parts of the code based on the syntax. It allows you to debug the code much easily, and this is much more useful for some other programming languages. Essentially, when you want a lot of programs and codes and various files when you want to analyze them at the same time. And as it's open, we can double click to open it. Then VS Code, Microsoft Visual Studio Code opens up. Accept the agreement, go to next. In here, you can just, if you want to create a particular menu in the start folder, you can create it with the name, but I'm not going to do it. You can go to next. In here, you can create a desktop icon over here, and other options include the add open with code. This is a very useful function because say you have a Python file here and you right click it. Now in the right click, this menu that opens up is view sort by refresh. This one is a context menu because it's context specific. Like say you clicked over and there was a file over here and you clicked over here, it would open a different thing as opposed to what would happen if you click here and opened it. See, it shows taskbar settings here, but it shows all these things for you as it's a context menu. And what happens is if you have a Python code and you click right click and open with code, it will allow you to open the code directly from the Windows Explorer. So after you click that, click next and install. This is going to take some time. Now after the installation is complete, you can check the launch Visual Studio Code checkbox here and click on finish. And finally you have the IDE here. Now you can first now this, I think this was because I have I already had a particular folder open last time. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you how to open it. Usually you won't see this folder over here the first time you install it. What you will rather see is just nothing, like emptiness. So go to File and Open Folder and create a new folder. Let's see, Programs, and see Python Programs. And in the particular folder, click on Select Folder. Okay, now that you opened up the program, now one more thing, you usually do not want spaces in the name of your folder, because what will happen is when the Python code evaluates, like you'll have the path like this. When the Python code evaluates a space, it will think that one part of it is one thing and the other is not part of the command and not part of the path. Like for example, you can click on the new file button here to create a new file. Let's name it main.py. It is conventional for Python files to be the main Python file to be named main.py. Now, before coding and running the Python file, you'll want the Python extension. So go to the extensions tab, which is one which looks like 3 squares, another floating one, the 5th button, and search extension. Just type Python, and this one, the Microsoft Verified Python. Now, what we're going to do after we install this is we're going to set up the Python version 3.11.2 that we installed previously and add it to this. And there it is. Okay. Now that it's installed, you will see this 3.11.2 here. You can just click on it and it just by default detected it. Now if it did not detect it, what you want to do is enter interpreter path, and then you can find where it is. And usually it'll just be in this particular path, app data local programs python.exe. And once you install Python, you can start by typing various functions and commands here. But what happens, so the first command that we're going to type is the print command, which is very fundamental to almost every programming language. It is usually the first command that every programmer types for a particular language. So just type print, that's print, open parentheses. Now what happened was I just clicked the open parentheses, but it completed it because we added the Python module. We installed it from the extensions, and that completed it. And from here, click on the double quotations and type hello world, and click on the run program button over here. Now, as you selected an interpreter essentially allows you to run the Python code through this Python app. The python.exe, it runs this code. That's what an interpreter essentially does. It goes over each and every line and then interprets it. Now, if you click on run Python file, it will show the output. There it is, hello world. Now, if you want to make it look a bit different, you can add various themes to it. In the extension, if you type, say, Monokai, it's like a very colorful theme, you can click on install and choose the required one. And there it is. Now, it looks a bit different than the previous one. And you can just type theme and search for whichever theme you want and are most comfortable with. And that is how you set up Python on a Windows machine. And thank you for watching.